these truths to be self-evident.
That all men are created equal.
As a member of Congress, I get to have a lot of really interesting people in the office. Experts on what they're talking about.
This is the podcast
for insights into the issues.
China, bioterrorism, Medicare for all. In-depth discussions.
Breaking it down into simple terms. We hold
these truths.
We hold these truths.
With Dan Crenshaw.
The Eagle has landed.
Welcome back, folks. We have the hilarious comedian and freedom fighter, JP Sears, with us. It's been a friend to me. He's come and done stand-up at many of our events, and absolutely hilarious. It's hard to do stand-up about politics. Maybe it's, I could, but I have so many parameters that I'd have to operate in. It's just too hard. You got to just let loose if you're going to do it.
You have a career that you want to be responsible for. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, pretty much. But if you haven't followed JP on YouTube or Instagram, it's definitely worth a follow. Just his satire is spot on. It's actually funny, right? It's easy to just kind of yell at the wall about political issues. It's a little harder to just be actually funny about it. And I think there's a connection with people that happens, that there's greater value in that when you're funny, right? And so I guess we want to talk about that. I'll say a little bit more about you. We're also here to talk about a book. We recently came out with a children's book called Chomp 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 something. So tell me the name of it.
Yeah, Chomp Chomp Chomp, the Snap Fast Challenge, released with Brave Books. So just the world we're in today, you know it as much as anybody, the dangerous ideologies that are engineered and aimed at children. Not only do we need to protect children from those, but I think we need to create positive solutions that are good morals, pro-America, pro-God, pro-freedom. And this book is a message about just that. It's, in fact, the number one message that I wish to teach my son. If I could only teach him one thing, it would be always do your own thinking, be in touch with your heart, and have the courage to let your actions follow your thinking and your heart. So I wanted to make that available to families all around the country as just my small contribution to helping solve some of the problems we're in.
How many children did you interview before you wrote this book?
I was sitting in a Russian sauna, and there were 12 naked men. They were in their 60s. They all identified as kids. So given the fact that they had been a kid for close to 7 decades, they had a lot of life experience. And I found that was very valuable intel compared to just interviewing like normal kids that are biologically like.
Did you have to be in Russia to be in the, is there Russian, if I Google Russian sauna, what am I going to find?
Yeah, I don't know what you're going to find, but there's Russian saunas all over the place. I think there's one in Austin. I haven't actually been to it. But if I had, I'd walk in obviously naked because we want to do it right. Well, it's like the movie. Ukraine. What
was that movie with Viggo Mortensen? And they have the fight in the Russian sauna. He plays like a Russian gangster. It's like Eastern Promises. It's a good movie.
Yeah,
you've never seen that movie? And they have like a full on like knife fight in a Russian sauna, and their towels never fall off.
That's great. I haven't seen that. But
how have you not seen it? How are you talking about Russian saunas and you haven't seen the ultimate fight scene? He plays a Russian gangster. It's good.
I'm just irresponsible. That's how I do it. But that does sound like a good movie. I'll have to check that out.
Well, you did start off. I didn't know that about you. You started off as a life coach. So before you got into comedy, and so I'm life coaching you right now. You need to see this movie, but. How did you shift? So what was that all about? Because I see a lot of your stuff, and you are very fitness oriented. You're like real jacked guy.
If we could talk about that a little more.
Yeah. We can if you want. Like I don't know what you're benching these days, or you're deadlifting, or what is your premier what exercise ability? Are you good at benching? Good at squatting? Are you good at like your more dynamic kind of Olympic lifting? Like what's your deal?
My legs have always been like twice as strong as they should be compared to my upper body. So like benching, I was never doing anything impressive, but just genetically, I have strong legs, and of course, working hard helps that out. So squats would probably always be my premier thing. Deadlifts were pretty decent. And I say, in the past tense, they were because 2 years ago, I had a complete tear in my patella tendon in my left knee out wakeboarding. And, I fell, looked down, and my kneecap is up mid-thigh, supposed to be at your
not
knee.
supposed to be there.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't supposed to be.
I tore my pectoral tendon off the bone once
geez.
skiing. I was going down this pretty dropped into like a very deep powder kind of double black diamond. That's not what made me fall. There was bears, and bears is probably associated with ISIS, illegal immigrant ISIS bears, and they attacked me, and I killed them both, but I also fell because I don't fall when I'm skiing, but because of the ISIS
kills
legal
bears does not fall skiing.
No. And then I tore my tendon. I still ski the rest of the day. It was a weird, your pick comes out here,
and
right out to the middle.
You still skied. You didn't think about like the whole medical attention kind of thing.
I honestly thought I was perhaps just strained, because that's a weird injury. It doesn't hurt a ton. You still have, it hurts, but its range of motion is okay. So I'm like, maybe I'm okay. And then the next day it was like swelled up, and I looked huge. I looked really buff, at least on one side.
Got a big
so I also like went out, and had beers that night. And I was like, God, I look so cool. I mean, I look asymmetric, but I look cool. But the next day I was in a lot more pain, and then they had attached that tendon back to the bone. Now that's a painful surgery. That's like 6 months of crappiness.
Yeah, I mean, similar with a knee. It's mine over 2 years later. It's still not right. It's come a long way, but it's just that.
Was ISIS responsible for your injury?
It was MAGA Republicans.
Were they in the water?
It was
because of the boat parades they do.
Well, that and the newfound science we've now come to understand that exercise is right-wing extremism. So as wakeboarding, that's a form of exercise. So obviously it was those pesky MAGA Republicans in the water grabbing the board, tearing my knee. It was just really a hate crime.
It was against the redheaded people.
Yes.
Sorry. I don't want to. Is that the right way to refer to you?
Yeah, we can call ourselves gingers, but nobody else can. So
if I call you, you're a ginger though. I mean, wait. So
now that's offensive that you called me what I just called myself.
You are I'm sorry. I should we erase that? We should erase. Are we done? Did we just end the?
I don't know. These podcast platforms might just completely deplatform you for that kind of hate speech, but
I just don't. I guess. Okay. Well, that was like, sorry. Okay. We're done because I offended him.
Cut.
So sorry.
But not to make myself a victim, yet I would like to declare redheads are actually the biggest minority in the planet, maybe smallest minority, depending on how you look at it. But yeah, we're very oppressed people. We've gone through a lot of severe sunburn, and the nearest star in the sky literally emits hate towards.
Are you left-handed too?
No, I'm not that demented.
That would suck.
Yeah.
Could you imagine?
My parents wouldn't have even pretended to love me.
At least they pretended. So I'm left-handed in a way because I have to shoot my rifle left-handed now. So I've had to learn, but I'm right-handed. But I have to shoot I still shoot pistol right-handed, but I have to shoot it's because of the eye thing. And but it's not that hard. It'd be harder with a pistol, to be honest.
How is it then that you can still shoot the pistol right-handed?
Well, because it's just a matter of where your kind of line of sight is. It's so on a rifle, it's extremely difficult to get if I'm shouldering it on my right side, I can't get my left eye over there. But with a pistol, I totally can. It's just right in front. I just move it slightly. So
that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't think it was that complicated of a concept, but
That's how you were able to kill the bears that made you fall.
No, I killed them with ski poles.
Ski poles. That's I'd imagine a quick, painless death for the bears.
Yeah. No, it was painful. I think. I mean, I hope. ISIS bear, illegal immigrant ISIS bears. Fuck them.
I heard recently, and I'm so ignorant on this because I literally just read the headline. I don't even know what the story was, but I saw a headline that the Biden administration has set forth a plan to release grizzly bears every so often near an actual population of people.
Yeah.
Do you know about that?
It's probably true. I mean, why
If it
wouldn't
sounds
it be
stupid? Then yeah.
Did you did you read it on like, whatever Red Elephant Patriot manifesto.com?
I don't know.
Wait. Was it forwarded in an email?
No. It might have.
Those are always true.
I still have a friend who forwards me emails like that, like it's 2001.
Yeah.
It's great. And I do believe everything he sends me. I recently sent the Prince of Nigeria several $1,000s just to help him out a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably for a good cause.
Yeah.
So Grizzlies are terrifying, to be honest. And, ever since Leonardo DiCaprio was shaking around like a little rag doll, I'm like, what would I do? What would I do in that situation? I don't know, man. Just not be in a place where there's grizzlies. We were hiking in Yellowstone once, and it was me and my wife, and she was oddly walking way behind me. And, not because she's that much slower than me. And I was like, why are you walking so far behind me? And she's like, I forgot to tell you, I put salmon in your bag, for lunch. And I'm like,
that's not a good idea.
Oh, it's like, you did what? I mean, and
Did
she's
she
like,
recently take out another life insurance policy on you?
And I was like, she's like, yeah, I mean, it's better that we're not both getting killed because I need to call for help. I'm like, who are you going to call? Get this damn salmon out of my bag.
Can you run faster than her though?
Well, yeah. Well, she's pretty fast. She's a fast sprinter. She played lacrosse. I think she was definitely banking on the idea that I'd be the distraction, because I'm going to fight the bear.
Yeah. I mean, if you're the salmon carrier, she's really stacked the cards against you.
It's not good. I mean, I'm scared of bears. I'm much more scared of sharks and poltergeists in general, because you can't, how are you even going to fight those? There's some kind of method for fighting a bear. It's kind of right. Like you're not going to do very well in that. I mean, let's be honest, but it's for a shark, there's no method.
You're in water. That's not the way humans move in water compared to a shark. I mean, it's like a quadriplegic trying to fight you on dry land. It's just not a good situation. I had a shark encounter one time. I was living in Charleston, South Carolina, and all the beaches there, it's just very murky water. It's not clear whatsoever, which happens to be a good habitat for bull sharks, which are
Those are not nice.
Yeah, they don't bite you by accident. They're very intentional with wanting to bite you. So my girlfriend at the time, her and I were there together, maybe chest deep water. My parents were in town visiting. They were maybe 20 yards away, and a shark swam between us. And denial is just an insane thing. Just kind of like your pec tear. You're like, well, maybe don't need medical attention. I did the same thing with my knee. I'm like, well, I'll just slide it back into place and I'll actually keep wakeboarding. Won't even have to get back in the boat. No. So even though I saw the shark, I was in denial, but I was just looking at something about that wasn't right. And then, 5 seconds later, it swam back and you see the fin and the tail fin. And it was maybe a 3 or 4 footer, not something you want to encounter. I mean, maybe it would take chunks out of you, maybe get an artery. It's probably not going to swim you out to sea, but still I really was impressed with how fast I got out of the water, pushed my girlfriend down just so she could get in my way.
That's important. Maybe cut her. Did you cut her?
No, I wish I would have. I
scratched a
I
little
wasn't
bit.
thinking-
Yeah,
I was selfish. I wasn't thinking about what else I could have done to save myself at her expense.
Yeah.
But then
but because if you were life coaching someone, I mean, like, you got to give them good advice.
yeah.
And what's your like funniest life coaching moment? I feel like you'd be a really fun life coach.
Yeah, I loved life coaching, and I was doing like fitness coaching, which then kind of also bred into life coaching, helping people reduce their stress. And, I would say the whole career of life coaching was the funny part. And here's why: years old. And the fact that there I am, people objectively far more successful than I am, twice my age, so much more life experience. They're coming to me, and of course I gave it my all, and I think I helped people, but also I was so blind to the fact that it's just a ridiculous situation. People paying me for life coaching, and there I am. It's kind of like, what do I do to save my marriage? I'm like, well, do you tell your wife to calm down? And we tried that. I don't know what else to do, guys. This is a tough.
How did you even get into that? Is there a life coaching like license that you can apply for?
There's no licensing. It's a very unregulated industry. There's certifications, which is like, I could start a certifying body right now if I wanted to. So I got certifications, and the fact that I was doing exercise coaching, personal training, made it a very easy sort of transition to like, well, and we can also look at other aspects of your life. Because if someone's coming to you for weight loss, like, cool, exercise, good nutrition, that's important. But also when people are stuck in a cycle of stress, they've got elevated cortisol, and cortisol is a fat storing hormone, muscle wasting hormone. So it's like, if we want to get to the root of this and set you up for success, there's some stresses that we might need to work with. And not to be too self-deprecating, I was very aware, like, hey, even if I was an 80-year-old wise man, my place isn't to give advice. It's to ask questions and help people connect to call it their own higher self, their own wisdom, because we all have self-sabotage mechanisms, and getting people to basically tell themselves and then act on what they already know is in their best interest. That was basically the structure of how I worked it. So yeah, long story short, I got life coaching certifications, and then just I had no fear. Oh, let's do this.
Yeah. Okay. I'll tell you how to save your marriage. I feel like I would just be the worst life coach. I'd be like, you did what? Are you stupid?
Everybody is the worst life coach.
There are no good life coaches.
You just shame people. Well, you did what? You shouldn't have done that. Do you know how stupid that is?
It's a bad idea. How do I save my marriage? You need to end the affair. That would be probably should end the affair. I mean, maybe sometimes people just need that sounding board, and I guess that's why you get paid the big bucks. And so you moved into comedy. Let's talk about why comedy is so important in the political world with what you do. There's not that many people that do it well. I think you do it really well. And there's more and more like conservative comedians. They're not like super openly conservative the way you are. But I could name quite a few, I think. It certainly lean that way. And there's the Babylon Bee, of course, which is, just the ultimate satire and just nails it 9 times out of 10. I didn't like their recent one where they made fun of Whataburger, but it's at least they mostly get it. Yeah, they did. You didn't know that?
I didn't. And I will die on this hill. I think Whataburger stands above In-N-Out.
Okay. I mean, that's the Texan stance. That's the doctrine. And their headline was a group of Texans still trying to pretend Whataburger is good. It was something like that.
Yeah, there's nothing funny about that.
There's not. Yeah, I mean,
objectively horrible.
Yeah, they should They should stop. But let's talk about, I mean, there's value. There's such enormous value in satire and comedy. It's a whole language in and of itself. What's your journey through that? How do you get good at it?
Yeah, I think first off, on the importance of it and getting into my journey, nobody's ever gone to their doctor and their doctor says, you know what, you need to laugh less. You need less happiness and joy in your life. So if we can get people to laugh at the very least, that's serving a purpose. But especially using satire in the political world with all the craziness going on, I think there's an even more important purpose, because the number one principle in comedy is the truth principle. That's why a lot of people would look at Saturday Night Live nowadays and say, like, well, why isn't that funny anymore? It's because they're not really using the truth principle. They're kind of using the narrative principle. So the truth principle in comedy, it's basically means you're revealing a truth that needs to be revealed. If people resonate with it, that's evidenced through laughter. They're having some kind of psychological breakthrough. And I like to say, we use the sword of satire to slice through the psychological scar tissue to help let the light of truth out. And satire specifically, as opposed to slapstick comedy or dark comedy, other kinds of comedy, I think satire, it's more nuanced because we're not relying on, shock value. We're not relying on goofiness. We're more relying on nuance. And I think using the nuance to slice through lies, hypocrisy, corruption in the political world, that's part of what helps the light of truth come out. And just to be self-serving, because I'm a comedian, so of course I'm biased. Like, well, comedy is the most important job in the world. It's not. It has a purpose. But do you remember what I was about to say, Mr. Crenshaw?
I'm not good at that.
Well, I'll then make it up as I go along. I feel like Joe Biden sometimes. It's like, dude, I had a point I was really excited to share.
The nuance of satire and how it's different from, like, I found interesting from what you were just talking about was the different strands of comedy, which I haven't really thought of before. There's like slapstick. Yeah. There's dark comedy. I love dark comedy. But then there's satire, which it just requires a little bit, because there's a couple of questions I have about what you do, which is, how do you make sure you're hitting the point just right, not to alienate the people you'd like to kind of bring to your side while also still entertaining the side that already agrees with you? I don't know. You were just talking about the nuance of it.
Yeah. Well, luckily I thought of it. So God help us all. One of the other benefits of comedy and how it has a place in the world, because you can have a doctor, an honest politician, whoever it is, sharing great information with the public. But if that information violates someone's current frame and is just coming out at a preaching level, the human psyche, if someone's not open-minded, and unfortunately a lot of people aren't, it gets defended. It's going to resist the new information before it even gets in for consideration. Mm-hmm. So one thing comedy does that's unique is it's bringing information in through the language of playfulness. And that seemingly doesn't seem to be as threatening to the human mind. So the automatic defenses, it might come up if you're listening as a doctor talk about the same topic. Those defenses tend to not go up as much. So the information embedded in a joke can get in for deeper consideration so that someone, not to brainwash someone, but they can hopefully think a little bit more about the topic than they otherwise would have. So it's kind of the way I look at it is, it's like if your dog needs medicine, it needs a pill, just give them the medicine. It's usually going to spit it out. But if you wrap it in meat or cheese, it helps the medicine go down. And I think that's at least the way I try to use comedy. It's the way the Babylon Bee uses comedy. And then to your question of like, how do you know if, something's on point, or is it like going to be offensive or just mean? I think one is realizing everybody's going to perceive it differently, and also not being afraid to offend people, because I think we actually need more of that. Our world just becomes more nerf when we pretend feelings are violence and you can't say anything offensive. But the truth is, I think when someone's offended, an insecurity of theirs is coming out, and hopefully they have a chance to look in the mirror and view it, as opposed to just get angry at what they're seeing in the mirror and then punching the mirror. Yeah. So I think as a comedian, what I look at is, what's my intention here? If I'm doing a video or a joke, what's my intention? If my intention's pure, I know what the message is that I want to convey, then I don't really care who it offends. And I would say, lastly, the past probably year or so, I've realized I had been bashing the left a lot, and the left needs to be bashed a lot, and I'm going to keep doing it. But I realized, like, I think I need to be more self-deprecating. I need, for the conservatives, I need to be more self-deprecating. We need to laugh at ourselves. Like, I mean, we're ridiculous as well. We're not like lunatic evil ridiculous like the left, but we need to laugh at ourselves. We need to like break through our own limitations and grow and learn, be smarter. So long story short, I've learned, like, also I want to be more self-deprecating with my people.
Yeah, it's important. Also, with that, there's also some strategy in doing that, which is if we have political goals, I mean, and of course I do, and being kind of an outspoken conservative, I think you do as well. And the definition of winning in politics has to be persuading other people to see it your way. And you got to use a variety of tools to do that. And they're more inclined to see it your way if they perceive you as sort of a fair actor, biased, but at least fair, like willing to acknowledge shortfalls, shortcomings here and there. And I do. That gets me in a lot of trouble with certain segments of the right, because I'm like, well, you're wrong, and that's stupid, and that's not even what conservatives are supposed to think. Just before we were talking right now, I just got finished doing a podcast with Avik Roy, who wrote sort of a doctrine on freedom conservatism versus the NatCon conservatism. So there's this whole movement of NatConism, and to me, that's more stylistic than it is like a set of policy platforms. But that group of people really hates me. They're not sure why. I think they call me a war hawk, and I'm like, that sounds kind of cool. Am I a war hawk? Okay. Yeah. Guess I'm a fucking war hawk. Yeah. They're tired of all the wars that me and my friends have been fighting in while they complain about it. I mean, fair enough. But it's like, you're right. Like, it's stuff like that. The other thing, I make fun of conservatives all the time. I'm like, look, can you please not be a Second Amendment advocate if you don't know how to do attack reload in under a second? Just don't even, if somebody needs to hold your back while you go on full auto for your little Insta video, don't. Like, you look silly. I've seen some people do that. So it's just okay to make fun of ourselves and obviously still be for something like the Second Amendment, but still make fun of people for doing silly things. That's okay. Now, the left just happens to give us a lot more content, especially, and you highlight this in the most hilarious of ways, which is like the transgender sports stuff. It's just like, I mean, it gets so ridiculous. I always joke. It's like, let's walk into a room and say, I'll fight any girl in here. I'll just fight anybody in here, because that's literally where it's become. I'll show them what I am.
With the conservatives, yes, we're goofy, we're silly, we need to be called out, but we're at least based in reality. This idea that, like, well, yeah, you might have male genitals, but like, that doesn't mean you're a man, and it doesn't mean you can't get pregnant. And of course, you should join the women's sports team. That's not even based in reality. I mean, we're just trying to get those people back down to planet Earth here. I mean, it's almost like we're dealing with a severe mental issue over there, where like treatment is
warranted. You know what they need? A life coach.
They need more than life coaches. I think they need to be heavily medicated.
But a certified life coach.
Oh, it's certified. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
They need Tony Robbins. I know you know Tony, and he's been to your events. They need the GOAT.
They need him. He is the GOAT, man. That guy can capture an audience, and he's telling you, it's impressive, and he's still at it. Like, that guy has the energy of 10,000 men. It's he actually wrote a book about it, like how much energy he has. It's weird. It's something like different about him.
I don't know if he's human, and I say
Not
that
really.
he's a friend. I love him with all due respect. I don't know if he's a human. The schedule he maintains, the power he brings. I remember the first in-person event I did with him. It was in Dallas in 2016. He invited me. I'm like, well, yeah, I've listened to Tony's cassette tapes since I was like 19 years old. I think he's got good stuff. Let me go check it out. But there at the event, my expectations were met. They were blown out of the water. Just seeing the way he captivated 8,000 people and leading them into very deep, amazing places of their minds, their hearts, my mind, my heart. And I mean, it just blew me away. And a weird, demented thought I had, I think that first day watching him just captivate people, was, now I understand how Hitler did it. Like, this power of connection, persuasion, intelligence, which Tony uses for absolute good. I do think he's an angel inside of a human body, but that kind of power, captivating an audience, being used for bad, now I can understand how Hitler did it. I never understood before, how the hell did he get a whole country on board with his demented agenda?
It's terrifying. It's terrifying how quickly people can be subjugated, convinced of a thing. Social media's made that much easier and a little scarier. I mean, I'm not so sure, for all the benefits you and I use social media for, including how we publish this podcast. It's like, it's not obvious to me that there's a net benefit to it. And
I agree.
it's you are not emotionally capable of dealing with the omniscience that social media and the internet give you, and it's making people very fragile and kind of crazy. And it's allowing some of these crazier ideas to spread in ways that are like, just never before seen. I mean, you do a lot of satire on transgenderism, and I fight it in the Congress. We had this long debates in our committee, because my bill tries to take away graduate medical education funding from children's hospitals that do transgender surgery on minors.
Okay.
And I'm like, and Democrats are just fully on board against it. And I'm like, you guys, there's no way you believed that transgender surgeries on minors was okay like 5 minutes ago. There's just no way you believed that. And yet this has become like a social contagion where it's like, you must believe this, despite the evidence suggesting that it's not really beneficial and in fact harmful.
Yeah. And I know their basic, and I do mean it's very basic, their basic argument is like, hey, we save these people from suicide if we give them the surgeries. But I think it was out of Finland, or maybe Sweden, the post-surgery suicide rate actually goes significantly up. I think at 5x compared to someone who identifies as the opposite gender, but they never go through surgery.
Yeah.
The surgery actually causes
there's a lot of nuance to those studies, and I pointed them all out to them. I'm like, there's definitely no study that shows less suicide, right? What the real science does show is that there's psychological comorbidities associated with suicide. And what people have started to do is say, why am I feeling this way? Why do I feel anxious? I feel suicidal. I feel alienated from my peers, like normal teenage things, to be honest. And then they find something to explain it all. That's where this sort of transgender ideology comes from. And that's also why you see studies that show that it is kind of a social contagion where like you are more likely to identify as transgender if you have more peers who identify as transgender. So that fact alone has got to make us stop and say, wait, what the heck is going on here? Maybe it's not, you're not born with this this ideology. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying that, I'm not even saying that gender dysphoria isn't real. It very much can be, but to treat it by affirming it is a real disservice to that, especially a child. And, as conservatives, I think we should start there. I mean, like, definitely stop it from happening to children. If adult want to, so there are some adults who are perfectly happy with it. There's the other BS thing about those studies. They'll have doctors telling parents, and we had Chloe Cole on this, and this is what her parents were told, that there's only a 1% chance that she'll regret it. But they were using studies that were highly biased. These were not randomized studies, of course. They were very selective in who they chose, and they chose adults. None of these studies are in children. So you're asking adults if they're happy a year later with whatever surgery they went through, and and then they're excluded. And then they tended to exclude people from that pool if they dropped out of the study, meaning they likely did regret what they did. So, I mean, parents are being lied to and bullied by some of these ideological doctors.
Man, it really does concern me. I mean, the idea of believe all kids when it comes to a life-altering, body-mutilating procedure. It's like if we were believing all kids when I was young, I'd be sitting here today with Batman transition surgery, just, a cape permanently stapled to my back, got the Batman ears surgically implanted, because I wanted to be Batman for sure. But a question,
I still want to be Batman.
Yeah, I wouldn't regret that.
I mean, do you not have a really good Batman costume? Because I do.
No, I have a real good one. Yeah.
Like which one? Which movie?
It's modeled off the Christian Bale movies.
Yeah, I got one. I got the Batman one. Done it for two. I dressed my daughter up as the Penguin, and then I battled her. She's 10 weeks old. She killed me with cuteness. It's a funny video. Posted it on Instagram. It's on Instagram from Halloween.
I will look that up.
Please look it up
for you. Because you're there in the trenches. So when it comes to transgenderism, you look at just like the average congressperson on the left. They're mindlessly supporting anything that's like pro-transgender surgeries, whatever it is. Most of these people, even though at times they will act stupid, they're probably intelligent. They know, like, one of the most basic facts that is as old as time itself. Boys are boys, girls are girls. We know what a woman is. It's an adult female, and vice versa for men. Yet they support these really radical bills. My question would be, what is it in their mind that causes them to give such unwavering support to something that is a fictional reality? Is it just they're loyal to the party, or what goes through their mind, do you think?
It's the ultimate question, and I don't know, because it's not like they confided me afterwards and they're like, I mean, you're right, this is crazy.
Sure.
That doesn't happen. You can kind of tell that they maybe don't believe it based on some, like, depending on which congressperson we're talking about, just based on their arguments. They might be making sort of a wishy-washy argument about procedure, or how it's not the right thing. In my bill in particular, it's not right to hold Children's Hospital graduate medical education funding hostage for this. We should debate this separately. That would be one argument they can make to kind of just thread the needle, without like openly supporting double mastectomies on a 12-year-old girl. But some literally do, and some tried, and they brought on a Yale doctor as a witness who is very actively supporting these and very actively trying to promote these false studies. And I just destroyed her because I knew the material, and we're still hoping to have that floor debate then you'll really see where this goes. And hopefully under a new speaker, he'll want to put that bill to the floor so we can debate it and just really break this entire issue wide open. It's but no, I mean, look, on this issue or other issues, is there like secret conversations behind the scenes about like, yeah, you guys are obviously right. Sometimes the border, I got plenty of Democrats who are like, yeah, we would. That's why I think like right now is a really good time to try and make a deal on border security and Ukraine aid. That's something I'm pushing for because, one side wants the other thing more than the other side does. Okay, so that's the ingredients for a deal. And Democrats, I think, secretly know that they need border security to save themselves. But they get captured, just like the right can get captured. Both sides can get captured by outside groups. And like, there's definitely members of Congress on both sides that are just like, and I see this from a lot of our hardliners on the right. Like, I'm like, where did you come up with these amendments? Somebody gave them to you. And it came from an outside group. They gave them to you with the promise of funding, right? Like, that's very clear to me. And the same on the left. Like, they're captured by very, very just fanatical people and movements on the left. Transgenderism being one, pro-immigration groups being another, because these groups raise money off of these issues. And so people are always worried about their primary before they're worried about their general. And the more that we've kind of segregated into different districts in Congress, where, redistricting has made districts very, very red and very, very blue, you don't have a general election. There's very few swing districts, and there's fewer and fewer since the last redistricting. And so there's very, very little incentive to do anything except listen to that very far left or very far right voice, because they're the ones who show up in primaries. And when I tell people all the time, there's 80% of you are just kind of normal people who sort of get both sides and don't partake in very extreme opinions, but you're not going out and voting in primaries. You're letting a very small group of very passionate people vote in primaries. And that's dangerous. And that's just, it's how you get to this place. Because in the end, representatives will represent, and they're going to represent their now sometimes I think my job is to tell you what I represent before I run for election, tell you what my values are, and then stick to those, and just be honest with you. I could just go with the wind, and sometimes oftentimes I have to go against my own side and be like, you are being fed false narratives, and I could easily tell you what you want to hear and make myself more popular with you, because I don't have to worry about a general election. I only have to worry about a primary. My district was changed from like a very purple district to like a very, very red one. So I could easily do that, but I won't, because it's not what I signed up for. And you shouldn't have signed up for it either. Nobody should sign up for that. You have to lead at a certain point. And now you can lead a little too hard, right? You can, you got to give truth to people at a rate that they can handle, but you got to give truth. You got to call out your side and the other side, because if otherwise you'll never convince people that the other side is even wrong if you don't have your own house in order. It's why I'm always fighting these battles. And those battles haven't been so extreme lately, but they were for me for a while, and they probably will be again in primary season when all the knives come out again, and all the weird stories about, I was thinking of making up my own like conspiracies about myself just to see if they'd gain traction. Here's one. Maybe you should do it. You should do a video. It would be, did you know that Klaus Schwab, the leader of the World Economic Forum, did you know that he had an affair with Hillary Clinton in 1983 in Davos? And do you know who the legitimate child was? Dan Crenshaw.
Mr. Crenshaw.
That's how I've been a Manchurian candidate this whole time. Yeah, you should just start that rumor.
I actually heard that's actually true.
Somebody already thought of it.
Yeah, I think that's true. No, but that's great. I like that. I think we should put that out there.
I just want to see if it'll gain traction. Then I can just be like, guys, I made that up, just to like show you, like, stop falling for crazy shit.
I think that would create traction. I mean, one of the I like a good old fashioned conspiracy theory myself. I mean, it's almost like you just, with all the lies and the media, the narrative, it's like, I don't believe in reality anymore. It's only conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
But one of the dangers of that, I found I have to really watch myself, and I see it with people around me. If you believe one conspiracy theory, which certainly can be synonymous with truth,
Yeah.
then there's like a part of you that automatically wants to believe them all. Like, oh, we didn't
Yes.
land on the moon. The moon is hollow. Space is fake. The earth is flat. Dan Crenshaw, birth child of Hillary Clinton and Klaus Schwab. It all adds up. If you believe one, you got to
It's all
believe
true. That's the scary part about analytical thinking in our country right now. And I think social media makes it worse, which is people do have a hard time telling the difference, even if they're just reading an article, because I'm so, politics is my world. So I can read an article left or right and be like, this is where they're bullshitting you. This is where this is an actual fact, but this is also how they're twisting that. Like I can just tell. And but not, but people who aren't immersed in that world all the time have trouble, I think, distinguishing that. And so, I get sent stuff all the time. Dan, is this true about this? I'm like, no, this is not true. This is why it's false. And I'm like, okay, good. I think I've really changed how that person thinks. But then I'll get it again from the next time. Now I saw this about you also. And I'm like, it was a lie the first time. It's a lie the second time. But I don't know how to solve that problem except just put out truthful comments as much as I can.
Yeah.
It's a rough one.
I'd imagine. It's people lie, there's corruption. And the interesting thing about evil is often very intelligent. So their lies are crafted quite well. Unfortunately, it's crafting evil stuff, and lies are in the direction of evil. So it's not like, hey, Dan Crenshaw is from Mars. It's like, no, like they'll engineer things so they seem
somewhat believable. There's like hints of facts associated with it. It's like, there's an art to it, and it's exhausting when you're in politics. Real quick, what is the children's book? What is it about? We didn't actually get into it.
Yeah, it's called Chomp Chomp Chomp, the Snap Fast Challenge. It's available at bravebooks.com, which you did a book with them as well. I tell you as though you didn't know. So the book is about peer pressure, and it takes, Snap Fast Challenge. It's a fictional social media landscape situation just to make it more relatable and more real for what kids are facing nowadays. And it goes through the journey of the main character. You see when she succumbs to peer pressure, the consequences of that, the betrayal of self, how that feels, doesn't work out well. But then you also see the redemption modeled for kids of seeing the courage of what it is to think for yourself and have the strength and courage to be true to yourself. So that's all modeled. And I think I mentioned earlier, the underlying message, it's the one message I most wish to impress upon my son, which is do your own thinking, be in touch with your heart, and have the courage to follow it. And, peer pressure, it seems like just one of those old, like, hey, well, we know about peer pressure. Like, don't do it. Drugs are bad. Cool. Don't succumb to peer pressure. But I look at the past 3 years at adults in our world and see how much this message of do your thinking, be true to yourself versus succumb to peer pressure, how much that message had not landed with a massive sector of the population. And of course, when we see adults, especially the past few years, succumbing to peer pressure, we call that obedience.
But if you ask them, they would say, I'm definitely doing my own thinking. And that's what's hard about this problem with peer pressure. You can tell somebody, do your own thinking. They're like, I am. I read up on it. I researched it. Now they researched what they researched. And so it's just a difficult problem. And like those adults wearing masks and outside walking their dog alone in the park, like they're like, you're the one not doing your own thinking. Yeah. How do we get past that? We just have such a disagreement on basic facts. And so that's even harder for kids to deal with, and because peer pressure is a real thing, it can go really bad places, or it can, I was lucky to be peer pressured, I guess, into like getting good grades. It was just, maybe that was cool in my school. I don't know how that happened, but it can be lucky or it can be bad. And it's terrifying as kids get up and then peer pressured by not just their peers, but by social media as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, with adults versus children, as you mentioned, it's such a hard nut to crack. I am doing my own thinking. It makes sense to me to wear a mask for the next 10 years, and you're not going to see my family because of science. The old saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So I think with an adult, say they're 50 years old, they've got 50 years of just the neural pathway in their brain being grooved in. They kind of slide into obedience, do as they're told. And as they do that, they're convinced like, well, this is what I think. But with children, I think that's why I'm so passionate. I think the most important thing is helping children. That's why I've always been such a fan of your youth summits, reaching the young people. That's in the stage of prevention. So if we can get the message to children and model it for them through stories, entertainment, and of course, role modeling and parents, that I think there's a lot more potential there because they don't have 50 years of the neural pathway being ingrained in, where if we reach children young enough, they can distinguish.
Yeah.
That's my thought. That's not my thought. Versus 50 years down the road, I don't know the cure for that. Someone who is convinced that someone else's software that's running on the hardware of their mind, they're very convinced that is their own thinking.
Yeah. Can't teach an old dog new tricks type of thinking. And I definitely find that kids ask the best questions. My youth summit's one thing. We sort of stopped doing it because it's too damn expensive. So if you didn't get an invite this year, that's why. Not because we don't like you.
I took offense to that.
But I do want to move it into actually my official capacity, because then I can go to schools and partner with schools and get to the kids who wouldn't normally come. Right? You do a youth summit and it's like, it's hardcore. It's already all the believers. There's not like debate happening there. And so that's one reason I stopped seeing value in it. And because what I want to do is talk to just regular kids in classrooms more. And I do that a lot in my official capacity. And they ask the best questions because I think they're genuinely curious. Now, sometimes they've clearly been indoctrinated. I had an interesting question the other day about, because one of the messages I give kids a lot is because they ask how to be involved in politics. And I'm like, well, first you need to recognize that you don't know a whole lot. Like just by definition of your age, you don't know a whole lot. So even if you're thinking for yourself, that doesn't mean a whole lot because you haven't had a lot of experiences yet and you haven't built frameworks with which to view the world. And so your best option is a little bit of humility and just understanding that you don't know everything and that you don't, I hope you eventually jump on my side, but you don't jump with feet first just yet, because you're gonna start to build opinions and you're gonna become very passionate about those opinions. And I promise you that somebody like me can start to pick apart those opinions, and that's gonna make you mad. And you're gonna get mad, you're gonna get upset and emotional, and you're gonna feel lost, and it's just gonna suck. And so what's better is to just be humble. Be humble about what you don't know. Like I didn't get really involved in political thought probably until my late 20s. Policy guy, yes, because I did my undergrad in international relations and physics, and I don't know why those two. They're just because I like them. And I did my master's in public policy. And so, before I even really got political, and so I encourage kids to do that. And then one kid from the audience, he said, how can I not be emotional about politics? Because that was another one of my messages. Like, just don't be emotional about it. Like, just think, use brain, not heart. Use brain, not heart, to the best that you can. He says, how can I do that when, one of my friends wanted to kill herself because of Republican policies? And so I knew what he was talking about. He was talking about abortion laws. He didn't say it, and I didn't want to dive into that rabbit hole with the audience. And so, but I knew that's what he was talking about, because this is in the wake of, Texas having by far the strictest abortion laws in the country. And I was like, first of all, she's being lied to about our policies. There is no policy that we have that should make you suicidal. That's not on the policy. It's on what she's being told about the policy. And you're kind of making my point for me, because I said, keep the emotion out of it. And so that point would save her from feeling that way.
Yeah.
And also, second of all, the fact that you can't kill a baby should not make you suicidal. let's just say that right off the bat too. We didn't get there because I didn't want to make it he didn't say abortion, but even though I knew that's what he was talking about. But there's young people that are just very agitated about politics. And that wasn't the case when you and I were growing up. Maybe you have a different experience, but and you're also like way older than me, right? I mean,
I'm 77.
Yeah. You identify as
collagen, so I look a little younger.
Yeah. Well, the gingers don't age. Sorry. I wasn't supposed to say it again.
You get this guy off the line.
It's my podcast. So you actually can't leave. It's
trying to kick you off your own name.
It's mine. But I forgot what we were talking about.
Your point, which I think is great advice. You mentioned it for kids, but it's such great advice for adults as well. When it comes to politics, be humble and keep the emotions out of it. I mean, we look at I would say on the whole, the left exercises those two virtues pretty poorly. You just see like, cool, here's your side, here's my side. My side doesn't line up with theirs. Now they're yelling, now they're screaming, now they're rage screaming, blue hair, and film this for Instagram. Like that actually just makes their side look worse. It makes them look way less credible. So in the be humble thing, man, we and I need to hear that too, just realizing there's more that we don't know compared to what we do know. And I think a humble mind is an open mind, and it's not a impression, not like a easy to manipulate mind, but it's an open mind. Yeah, let me hear your side, and maybe there's something I can learn, and maybe there's something I can change, or maybe what I hear just reaffirms what I currently think. So I think those are two.
Comedy is great at kind of humbling people. All right, a good comedy, good stand up on really tough issues, I think is great. There's a few that stand out to me. It's always like Bill Burr's he's too bad. Great. Yeah, he is, but like then he goes real left wing sometimes too. So I'm like super confused about what he actually believes. But like but his abortion bit on with the cake, right? You would do a much better job probably like repeating it than I would. Man, it hit at the heart of the issue so well. Louis C.K. did one like that also a long time ago. He's another like just one of the greats, except for like the weird. Let's just not talk about that.
Yeah,
the scandal stuff. But the way they hit it, and who knows what they actually believe. That's the beauty of comedy. Like I don't know what Bill Burr believes about abortion, even after that skit. Even though he made the greatest pro-life case ever. With that bit, I'm not sure that he's actually pro-life.
Yeah.
And that's what's interesting about a good comedian, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. And to Bill Burr's credit, I don't know him personally. I would speculate he's, fairly pro-abortion, yet he makes a great point with, for pro-life. And, you kind of why I would speculate he's a little more on the left on abortion. I mean, he's in Hollywood now, lives in LA, lives in California. We just saw his wife flipping off Trump.
Yeah.
So take an educated guess. He's probably fairly pro-choice. But the brilliance of being dedicated to the craft of pursuing truth and poking holes in things, he modeled that very well, where if you can even just look at what you believe firmly and skewer that with comedy, you're truly being a great, archetypal court jester to the kingdom. You're making people think more.
Yeah. Let's play the clip real quick.
Pro-choice people are like, well, it's not a life yet. It's not a baby yet. May or may not be true. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but I'll tell you, my gut tells me that doesn't make sense. It's not a baby yet. That would be like if I was making a cake and I poured some batter in a pan and I put it in the oven, and then 5 minutes later you came by and you grabbed the pan, you threw it across the floor, and I went, what the fuck? You just ruined my birthday cake. And then you were like, well, that wasn't a cake yet. Well, it would have been if you didn't do what you just did. There would have been a cake in 50 minutes. Something happened to that cake, you cake murdering son of a bitch. Right?
All right. But go ahead.
Yeah, and I think, with a master like Bill Burr, his setup of a joke, it's wiggling in, we're getting into someone's psyche, we're taking footsteps, that's the setup. Now you're into the psyche. And now he reveals the punchline, the delivery, and it lands. It really makes you think because he's wiggled into the psyche like just a master. So now, even if you're the biggest pro-choice person in the world, now you can't help but not consider the point that he just made, that you put the cake in the oven and it's kind of a cake from the get-go, even though it might not be fully baked.
Right. You ruined my cake. Well, it wasn't a cake yet. Well, it was gonna be in 50 minutes. Yeah, that's kind of the whole point on the pro-life issue. But I've been asked so much about abortion in the last few weeks, maybe because I was visiting California, and Republicans in blue states, like that's what comes to mind. They're like, we're losing on this. And I'm like, I don't know that we're losing on it. I'm not convinced of that. I see the Democrats have done clever things to, create horrible circumstances in states like Ohio. But the story there actually is they got it on the ballot. And what was on the ballot was a very vague statement about being able to control your own pregnancy. And what that meant in reality was, constitutionally in Ohio, you can kill a baby up to 22 weeks, which is based on viability. That's a scary moment for sure, but it's also doesn't mean we're losing, because we haven't lost the cultural argument completely. 60-70% of Americans don't believe there should be abortions past 12 weeks, and there's a real question now whether Republicans should because our stance has been, let the states decide. But there's a real good strategic question here, which is, should national Republicans at my level say, we're at least in favor of the Lindsey Graham bill, which is a 15-week ban? Let's at least start there nationally, because 70% of Americans are with us on that. And then let the states go more strict if they want to. Not to bring this abortion into what was a previously funny conversation about comedy. And but it is one of the big drivers. We're talking about kids, though. I mean, it's one of the big drivers for young Democrats, or young people, which are mostly Democrats. And it's a big one. And you got to win that cultural debate. And I'd like to think we are. It's tough to say, because you see our own activists and they're like, Gen Z is pro-life, and they have a group of Gen Zers being pro-life. But I'm like, is that statistically true? That's. We've got more work to do. We just do.
We do. I think we're making good progress. I think we have great momentum. I think we're in a far better spot with reaching young people and getting them on board with not just being an obedient leftist. I think we've made a lot of progress just in the last 3 years alone. I don't know the statistics. I'm just general observations, but I also think you're right. We have a heck of a lot more work to do. I mean, we know schools can just be indoctrination camps at times. We know Hollywood, they're aiming the arrows right at kids. So there's definitely a lot of work to do.
Well, but basically, okay, last question. Maybe we'll kind of turn this into a funner question, which is, what we haven't done a good job of is creating widely consumed media that just is subtly conservative. Just now on the other hand, you might argue that any good story is subtly conservative because that's how it sells. Top Gun, let's say Top Gun is a prime example, right? It is all of the hallmarks of just normal traditional roles and heroism and all of that. And it sold like crazy. Just a great film because it was just normal. I think a lot of the big hits fit that criteria. But that being said, there isn't there is no conservative West Wing, a very popular show but it was clearly about Democrats, but it made them look so good because they were thoughtful and nuanced, and like they weren't hyper partisan in the show. It was a good show. You actually learned a lot about politics in the show, to be honest. Even as a conservative watching, I'm like, this isn't a bad show, because they didn't try too hard. They didn't try to push too hard. They even humanized Republicans often in the show. You know, we don't do enough of that. Is there even space for it in the current you know, Hollywood world? I don't know. I think producers are very weary of anything that's even partisan either way. But I don't know if there's a question wrapped up in there. Oh, but here's my question. If you can comment on that if you want. But I was going to ask you, what's your best 2023 scary movie, since we just got done with Halloween and I like horror movies, so I thought I'd ask you.
Yeah, which, by the way, hopefully Hollywood is in the experience of ending its life, kind of put Hollywood in hospice. So there's certainly a lot of independent media, podcasting at the very least, like Joe Rogan. I know he calls himself a liberal. I think he's in denial. He's clearly conservative. So we'll see how that pans out. And I'm also a big fan of seeing what the Daily Wire is doing, taking a couple $100 million, investing that into entertainment with conservative messaging, but not like on the nose, just like too obvious, but just like good.
But I still don't know like where to even find their movies.
Yeah.
You know, like it's not like they're like super entertaining. You know, I think they actually are really on the nose, right? It was like I didn't even get it, honestly, the one about an active shooter. I'm like,
why are we didn't see that one.
Yeah, it's just weird. I don't even remember what their other one was, but I appreciate them trying.
Yeah,
I appreciate the attempts.
I do too. And to answer your question, and I apologize, this is going to offend you, I have watched so few movies this year, and I have not even seen a single horror film.
Are you scared of ghosts?
A little bit, yeah.
I'm a lot of it scared of ghosts. So
yeah.
I mean, why are you only a little bit? Like, what do you like? If there's a ghost behind you right now and he wants to fuck with you, like, what are you going to do about it?
I'd probably pee my pants and then sit here frozen, unable to move. I am ghost phobic. I discriminate against ghosts. So
I think they're terrifying. Ghosts, poltergeist, whatever you want to call it, because I'm afraid of things I can't shoot. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's why sharks are really high on this list. That's why bears are not super high on the list, because in theory I can hopefully I'm armed with a large caliber bullet. You know, as we say in the SEAL teams, never shoot a large caliber man with a small caliber bullet. Same issue with bears. And with sharks, though, you're not shooting a shark. Like because just so everyone knows, like, water is basically bulletproof. Like if I want to avoid you killing me, I will dive under a few feet of water. The bullets will not. I mean, they very quickly dissipate their energy, just so everybody knows. That's why I use a harpoon underwater. And unless you're swimming even if you are swimming with a harpoon, I'm just not sure how Jaws, he's got momentum. He's coming at you. You're just not going to win. You're just not going to win that fight. And bull shark, maybe as they kind of circle, you could harpoon them. But do you have, I'm not aware of harpoons with like large magazines. And if they were, you know, Democrats would ban them. You know, you can only have five capacity harpoon magazines.
They'll be banning spearfishing.
It's banning spearfishing. And ghost, same thing. You're just, if the ghost wants you, it's got you. And that's terrifying.
That's true. We need to do another lockdown pandemic for the ghosts.
Well, you had a very disappointing horror movie answer, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever see Haunting of Hill House?
No.
What? God,
No,
I think it's the best series ever for just scary stuff.
I'll have to check it out.
It's a few years old.
Big. I mean, when I was even a little kid, way too young to be watching these, but I love the Freddy Krueger movies. So good old fashioned Freddy Krueger.
Yes, that's like slasher.
That's my love language.
Yeah. Okay, so you like it? Yeah, that's like a different genre. I like to be freaked out.
Yeah,
I want it. I want to, you know, I want thought provoking horror, and it's tough to find. It's tough to do well.
Yeah, you want smart people horror. I just want dumb people horror. Like, just show me blood. I don't know.
All right, let's all split up. Guys, the only way to solve this, there's a murderer running around. We must split up. Don't take your cell phones. Don't take your cell phones. Somebody make sure there's no signal and no way to communicate. And we'll just be more efficient if we do the dumbest things possible.
And go upstairs.
And always, and never run away out of the house. Like, just run into different parts of the house so you can corner yourself. And
yeah, that's the human condition represented pretty well.
All right. I kept you too long. JP, it's always great to talk to you. It was fun. It was a fun one.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Crenshaw, thank you for having me on. And it's always a joy talking with you too. And wonderful to touch base with you today and connect with all these beautiful right-wing extremists in your audience.
Got a lot of ultra MAGA, and everybody remember, give 5 stars or, get eaten by a ghost. That's what's going to happen. All right. Thanks, JP. Good seeing you, brother.
See ya.